Good morning, students. Good morning, students. In a previous class, we have understood that many social reformers came in front for the change in to bring the change in the society as well in the change of the life of the women. In the early years, we have seen that the condition of women was very bad in the society, and they were not given any education and all, and for that many social evils were also prevailing in the society. And uh, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, social reformers like Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Swami Dayanand Saraswati, and all, they came in front for the upliftment of the status of the Indian woman. And in this way, first we have seen in a previous class about Ram Mohan Roy, who tried to show through his writings that the practice of widow burning had not no sanction in the ancient text. That means in the ancient religious books there was mm, no such things written as which can show that after the death of the husband the woman should be burned on his own on the funeral or on the pyre of the husband. As such, it was not given in any ancient books. So Ram Mohan Roy was against this widow burning that was called as Sati Pratha at that time. And British officials also at that time, the rule of Britishers were there. So the British officials also had begun to criticize the Indian customs and traditions, which were hampering the Indian society, which were creating very much disturbances in the society, in Indian society, and many social evils were prevailing in that at that time. And to means abolish those social evils, these social reformers came in front so that they can bring a change in the Indian society. So with the help of the work of Ram Mohan Roy, in 1829, sati was also banned. So, sati system in which the woman was asked to burn herself on the funeral pyre of the husband, uh, that was totally banned in 1829. Now, Ram Mohan Roy also suggested that the practice as it existed in the present was against the early tradition. That means whatever sati system was prevailing at that time, which was totally against the early tradition, which was not uh, fruitful or which was not recognized in the early societies. But nowadays, as according to Ram Mohan Roy, the sati system was prevailing in the society. It should be banned just because the woman should not be asked to burn themselves on the funeral pyre of the husband. And they want to bring the change in the society because according to early traditions and the ancient books, religious books also, this was not recognized. The sati system was not recognized. Then further, we have read about another social reformer, that is Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, in which he also had given the means the example of ancient text only, that ancient text does not suggest that widow should not marry, but he was in favor that widows should be given the chance to remarry after the death of the husband. The woman should be asked to marry another man. Then in the Telugu speaking areas also, Madras Presidency, Veer Salangam Patalu, he was also another uh, social reformer who formed an association for the widow remarriage. So he also was in favor of widow remarriage. In the same way as Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar and Veer Salangam Pantilu, Swami Dayanand Saraswati who also founded the association called Arya Samaj. He also supported widow remarriage. So Ramon Roy totally was against sati system. Ishwar Chand Vidyasagar, Veer Salangam Patalu, the Swami Dayanand Saraswati, they also supported widow remarriage. All these social evils were prevailing in the society at that time, and these social reformers wanted to bring total change in the society to uplift the status of the woman in the Indian society. But thou this they were against they supported the widow remarriage, and due to this only uh, widow remarriage act was passed. And though this act was passed, but then also few widows were only married, few widows were only married, remarried. And but they the number of these remarried widows was very less, and they were also not easily accepted in the society. And this widow remarriage law was passed in 1856, which permitted the widows remarriage. But then also so many widows were not married, remarried, was not given chance to remarry. And those who often remarried, married again, they were not accepted in the society at that time. Further, we have seen about Vidyasagar in Calcutta, and many other reformers also uh, set up the schools for girls education, because at that time importance to girls education was not given at all. And that is why Vidyasagar in Calcutta and many other social reformers also supported the idea to educate the girl. But in spite of the opening of so many schools by these social reformers, but then also the parents were not able to send, they denied to send their girl child to schools because of the various reasons. And these reasons we have seen, that the girls were taken away from home, they had to move away from home to reach to the school. Plus they this will prevent them in doing the household activities, whatever work they were doing earlier. But when they will be in the school, that time the household activities will be affected. And secondly, we have also seen that these girls had to travel through the public places in order to reach the school. The schools were far off, so they had to travel to public places, which the parents do not like at all. And the corrupting, they thought that this school going, the girls, if they will be going to school, that will have a corrupt influence, bad influence on them, and that is why they were not sent to school. But many educated women in the early years were taught at home itself. Those fathers who want to teach their daughters, and those husbands who wanted to their wives to be educated, they taught their means daughters and wives at home itself. The example is Rashundri Devi. She used to read and write in the light, in the candle, at night in the candlelight. And uh, at that time, sorry, at that time she was not means uh, openly, she did not get the education, but secretly he has to uh, take the education. The example is Rashundri Devi. And then next we have also understood about the aristocratic Muslims, that the Muslim household which were having a good standard, they are that their women also learned to read the Quran in Arabic. And Mumtaz Ali also interpreted the verses of Quran in various for the women education only, so that women can read and write at least the religious holy scriptures. Then further, we have read about Begums of Bhopal, who played a notable role in promoting education. They founded many primary schools for girls in Aligarh also. And about we have read about Begum Ruqayya Shekhawat Hussain also, who started school for Muslim girls in Patna and Calcutta. So these women were only helping out to get the education for girls, so that the girls at that time can be educated and can receive education uh, without any fear. Then further we have read about Tarabhai Shinde. Now Tarabhai Shinde also, he was a woman. She was woman, and she also was educated at home at Pune only. And she published a book called Stri Purush Tulna, in which she has given a clear comparison between women and men, and she criticized the social differences which were prevailing in the society, in the Indian society, between man and woman. So she was totally against these social differences which were being made in the Indian society between the men and women. Then next, another woman we have read about, Pandita Ramabai. She founded the Home for Widows, and in this was a shelter to the widows who were treated very badly by their husbands and their relatives. And there, Pandita Ramabai trained these women, widows, to get perfect in some art and craft activity, so that economically they are self-dependent. They do not depend on anybody. Then further, we have read about that women themselves actively started working for the upliftment of their own status. They only wanted to bring the change in the society, and they also wrote many magazines, and training centers were opened by the woman itself to uplift the status of the woman, so that girl child can be easily educated. And in the same way, leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose were also uh, supported. They also supported the upliftment of the women, the status of the woman, and wanted that the woman should get the equality and freedom as equal to the men. And they asked, even these leaders also asked women to concentrate on the anti-British struggle. At that time, the struggle against the Britishers was going on. So these leaders, as Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose, asked the women to concentrate on these anti-British struggles nowadays. And after independence, uh, they women were promised by them that they will get full suffrage. That means right to vote. Now, today we are going to start with the law against child marriage. Now, the another social evil which was prevailing in the society at that time was of child marriage. Now, with the growth of women organization and writings, these issues, the momentum for reform gained strength. Now, slowly, the reform to reform the whole society now was moving at great speed. People challenge another established custom. Now people started giving the challenge to the customs, social evils which were prevailing in the society, and one of that social evil was child marriage. At that time, there were a number of Indian legislations in the Central Legislative Assembly who fought to make a law preventing child marriage, and means number of many Indian legislators were there in the Central Legislative Assembly who had fought to implement a law which can prevent the child marriage. And finally, in 1929, the Child Marriage Restraint Act, that means to stop the child marriage, the act was passed in 1929 and was passed without the kind of bitter debates and struggles that earlier laws had been passed. So earlier laws for this to ban the sati, or for widow remarriage, those laws, when those acts or those laws were passed, much opposition was there by the people. But now when Child Marriage Restraint Act was passed, not so much debates or struggle was there, because now most of the people were in favor to bring the change in the society, to bring to reform the society from these social evils which were prevailing in India. According to the act, no man below the 18. Now, according to this 1929 act, no man below 18 and no woman uh, below 16 could marry. So this was according to the this age was according to 1929 act at that time. But slowly, the change in the years of the age of marriage was changed, and now it is raised to the limit of 21 for men and 18 for women. So the age limit for marrying for the marriage is 21 years for the men, and 18 years should be the woman to get married. And this is figure 8, which shows the bride at the age of 8. So bride is at the age of 8, and this was the picture of the child bride. at the beginning of the 20th century. Now, caste and social reforms. Now, these were the reforms, the changes which social reformers wanted to bring in the society, and they were in the favor for the support or for the upliftment or the status of the woman. Now, the changes in the caste system also needed, and the social reform movement was also needed so as to bring change in the society and in the caste system which was prevailing at that time. In the early pages of this lesson, we have already understood that at that time, in the early years, India was having a strict caste system in which the Brahmins and Kshatriyas were kept on the first category, and the Shudras and untouchables were kept in the last category. And these untouchables were not permitted to move in the open places, and even they had to do the menial work for the upper classes. And this type of caste system was prevailing in India. Now, some of the social reformers we have been discussing also criticized the caste inequalities. Now, these social reformers also criticized were against these caste inequalities which were prevailing in the society, Indian society at that time. Now, Ram Mohan Roy translated an old Buddhist text that was critical of the caste. That means Ram Mohan Roy also translated the old Buddhist text. A text was translated by Ram Mohan Roy so as to give knowledge about the caste which was prevailing in the society, to go against the caste system. And that is why he has translated the old Buddhist text also, so that people can read that Buddhist text and can open their minds against these caste taboos. The Pratna Samaj adhered to the tradition of bhakti and believed in spiritual equality of all castes. Now, the Pratna Samaj also emphasized on the spiritual equality of all the castes, means all the castes are equal. Even in Bombay, Paramhans Mandali in Bombay, Paramhans Mandali was founded in 1840 to work for the abolition of caste. So Paramhans Mandali was also founded in 1840 just to abolish this caste system. And many of the reformers and the members of the Reform Association of the people of upper caste, means the members of this Mandali were the people of the upper caste itself, those who wanted to bring the change in the society, and often in secret meetings, whenever the mandali in the mandali the meetings were being held, these upper caste people who were the members of this mandali, they used to violate the caste taboos on food and touch, means they used to violate those caste taboos, and they used to sit together with the untouchables or the lower caste people so as to violate the caste taboos, caste traditions and customs. Now, in the effort to get rid of the hold of the caste prejudice in their lives, so that they are not controlled by those caste customs and traditions which can hold them for longer period of time of their life. So they wanted to just come out of these caste taboos, restrictions which were there in their caste. There were also other who questions the injustices of the caste social order. Other reformers also were there who wanted to show that what type of injustice were there in the caste social order, and they wanted to make aware to the people that they should come out of their caste taboos about their conservative ideas. Orthodox people should come out, and they wanted these reformers wanted that everybody should be treated equally, not on the basis of the caste. They should be treated equally as as men and women also, and on the basis of the caste also. Now, during the course of 19th century, Christian missionaries began setting up schools for tribal groups and lower caste children, as at that time it was very difficult for the lower caste people or untouchables to get education. And that is why the Christian missionaries took step for that by setting up schools for these tribal groups or the lower caste children so that they can get the education. Children were thus equipped with some resources to make their way into changing world, and these children were educated in such a way, such resources were given to them that they can adapt themselves in the changing world, and they can themselves stand high for their self-esteem, self-respect. At the same time, the poor began leaving their villages to look for jobs that were opening up in the cities. Now, many poor people, that means the lower caste people, now left their villages and were coming to the cities to have the jobs, to look for jobs. There was work in the factories. Now in the cities there was work for the factories, and they were coming up, and the jobs in municipalities. So whosoever from the villages, the poor people were coming, they were coming to the cities because they were attracted towards the job opportunities which were being provided in the city by the in the factories and in the municipalities. Now in the chapter earlier you have read about in chapter 6 that the expansion of cities were there. Now due to the expansion of cities, proper roads to be built, drainage system should be proper, and the cities should be kept clean. And for this, the requirement of human labor was very essential at that time. So the new demands of the labor, the new demands of the labor created the demand for the human labor. Means these drains that had been dug, road laid, building construction, all these work demanded the human labor. And that is why this required coolies, diggers, carriers, bricklayers, sewage cleaners, sweepers, palanquin barriers, rickshaw pullers. So all these types of activities needed the human labor, and this human labor, these city people can get only by the people who were coming to seek jobs in the city. And these people who were coming to from the villages to the city, they were now given jobs as coolies, diggers to dig the ground and all, as a carrier to carry one thing to one place to another, plus bricklayers in making up the buildings and all. Even the sewage and sewage cleaners, they were doing the job as sewage cleaners, sweepers. Palanquin barriers means those who used to carry the uh, water. Means one stick was there on both the side, the pots were there filled with water, and they used to carry those filled pots with water from one place to another. That is called as palanquin barriers. And rickshaw pullers also was then one of the activity there. And for all these, human labor was required. Where did this labor come from? Now, the poor from the villages and the small towns, many of them from low caste, began moving to the cities where there was a new demand for labor. Some also went to work in plantation in Assam. Now, in plantation also, some used to work. These poor people who were coming to the uh, means who were coming to the cities from the town, villages and all, they were getting the new now jobs here in as a coolies, diggers and carriers and bricklayers and all. And some of these villagers who came to the city also went as a plantation on the in the plantation in Assam, Mauritius, uh, Trinidad and Indonesia for work on the plantation in Assam and all, to do the labor work there also. But the poor, the people from the low caste saw this an opportunity to get away from the oppressive hold and upper caste landowners exercised over their lives and the daily humiliation they suffered. That means the one thing they wanted, they were attracted to the job opportunities in the city, was that the lower caste wanted to come out from the hold of the landowners in the villages. They wanted to exercise, to live on their own, and to get the jobs in the cities. And they wanted to just get rid of the humiliation from the uh, landowners, in the whatever humiliating uh, was there, uh, behavior was there, uh, for them. They just wanted to come out from that, and that is why they came to cities in search of jobs, and there they got the jobs also in the cities. So next year, the figure 9 shows the ship in the 19th century. Now, this ship is called a schoolie ship named John Allen, and this carried many Indian laborers to Mauritius, where did the variety of forms of hard labor. Most of these laborers were from the low caste. Now, these type of ships were there who used to carry many Indian laborers to the Mauritius, so that they can be taken to other place for the human labor, who could produce the shoes. Now, uh, leather workers have been traditionally held in contempt since they work with the dead animals, which were seen as dirty and polluting. So, to the work of the leather used to be considered as very dirty and polluting work. But during the First World War, these shoemakers were ready to supply army shoes, and that is where they could ask for high prices and gain impressive profits for that. And this is figure 10, shows Medigas making shoes, 19th century Andhra Pradesh. And this Medigas was an important untouchable caste of present day Andhra Pradesh. They were expert at cleaning hides, tanning them for use, and sieving sandals. These were the activities which was done by Medigas, who was an important untouchable caste of Andhra Pradesh. Now, there were other jobs too. The army, for instance, offered opportunity. A number of Meher people who were regarded as untouchables found jobs in Meher regiment. Now, this Meher people was also the untouchables, and there was number of Meher people, the untouchables, who were regarded as untouchables, found job in Meher regiment. Meher regiment was there in the army, and so these Meher people, these untouchables, got the job over there in the Meher regiment. The father of B.R. Ambedkar, the leader of Dalit movement, taught at an army school. So the father of B.R. Ambedkar also taught an army school, who was also belonging to the Meher caste, which was considered as the lowest caste, untouchables. Now, no place inside the classroom. That means now here in the school also discrimination was made, and in Bombay Presidency as late as 1829, untouchables were not allowed. Even in the government schools, they were not allowed to get the education. And when some of them pressed hard for the right, they were allowed to sit. Means if any untouchable or lower caste person pressurized on the government to get the education, at that time, they were allowed only to sit on the veranda outside the class and listen to the lessons without polluting the room where upper caste boys were taught. That means they were not allowed to enter the class. Even those who wanted these lower caste people, children, if at all they wanted to get education, they had to sit in the veranda outside the classroom and had to listen to the lessons, so that they could not pollute the room in which upper caste children were getting education. Now, this is a picture of dublas of Gujarat carrying mangoes to the market. Now, these dublas were also the labor class who used to uh, give services to the upper caste landowners. They used to cultivate their fields and work at the variety of odd jobs at the landlord's house. Means many odd jobs, many other menial jobs were also done by them for the landlord. Next coming, demand for the equality and justice. Now, gradually, by the second half of the 19th century, people from within the non-Brahmin caste began organizing movements against caste discrimination and demanded social equality and justice. That means now, by the second half of the 19th century, people from within the non-Brahmins, when those people who were not not belonging to the Brahmin caste, They organized the movement against the caste discrimination and demanded social equality and justice. That means those who were non-Brahmins, those people who did not belong to Brahmin caste, they started a movement against this caste discrimination and wanted social equality and justice in the society. The Satnami movement in Central Asia, Central India was founded by Ghasidas, who worked among the leather workers and organized a movement to improve their social status. Now, this Satnami movement in Central India was founded by whom? Was founded by Ghasidas, and he worked among the leather workers. Leather workers were considered as very low, as a low caste, as the untouchables, and this Ghasidas, he worked with the leather workers and organized a movement to improve their social status. In Eastern Bengal also, now Ghasidas was from in Central India. He started the Satnami movement. Now in Eastern Bengal, Haridas Thakur Haridas Thakur, Mathua sect worked among Chandela cultivators. Now he also Haridas also worked among the Chandela cultivators. Now Haridas questions Brahminical text that supported the caste system. Now Haridas also was opposed to caste system, and according to Brahminical text, he also made the questions to the people who were strict or who were orthodox towards their own caste customs and taboos. Now, in what is present day Kerala, Guru from Azava caste, Sri Narayan Guru, proclaimed the ideals of unity for his people. Now, another reformer, Sri Narayan Guru, he also proclaimed the ideals of unity for his people. Now, he also wanted uh, that everybody should be treated equally and no differences should be there among the people on the basis of caste or uh, and the guru was from Ezava caste also for it is also the lower caste. He argued against treating people unequally on the basis of caste differences. According to him, now according to Sri Narayan Guru, all humankind belong to the same caste, so no difference should be made on the basis of caste system. Now, in his statements, Oru Jati, Oru Matam, and Oru Divam, Manushyam. And according to him, this means that Oru Jati means one caste, and Oru Mattam means one religion, and Oru Divam Manushya means one God for humankind. So he believed in one caste, one religion, and one God for humankind. So this was the famous statement given by whom? Given by Sri Narayan Guru, who proclaimed that unity should be there and everybody should be treated equally. Now, all these sects were founded by leaders who came from non-Brahmin caste and worked amongst them. Now, all these work, Satnami movement, then Chandela cultivators means Bengal. In Bengal, Haridas Thakur, and here Sri Narayan Guru, all they were the non-Brahmins. They belonged to non-Brahmin caste and they wanted equality in the society. They tried to change those who habits and practices which provoke the contempt of the dominant caste. They also wanted, they also tried to change those habits, those practices which were prevailing in the society, which provoked to provoke to help the dominant class means to make one particular caste as the superior caste. So they were just against that. They tried to create a sense of self-esteem among the subordinate caste. They wanted to create a self-esteem. Self-esteem means they wanted the people of low caste to have the to have the feeling of self-respect for themselves and should ask to be for the equality in the society. So till here only today. In our next class, that is Whenever if video uploading will be there, we will continue from this topic Gulamgiri. Till then, read till here. If any doubt, you can ask me. And tomorrow itself, I will upload the video uh, for the remaining part of this lesson. We will continue in tomorrow's video. Do check that video. Though tomorrow not the date for video uploading, but then also I'm going to upload it so that you can complete the lesson in time. So Gulamgiri, next video will be from Gulamgiri. That's all for today now. Thank you.